for me, it's all about I always hit on weather and stuff, it seems like, but I'm glad now that when I look at the temperature and it says it's going to be 85 degrees, I'm like, it's going to be hot today. So I'm glad it's cooling off. And like I said, I'm on record for my stance that it's my time of year coming up in fall and winter, so I'm going to try to enjoy it. I'm going to start you out, like I said, being a science guy, football guy, or sports guy. I like statistics, I like data. Some people, I find it neat. You see, watch a ball game or something, it's like, there's like for example, I saw this, they were talking about Purdue's football team. Said they have an 0 and 11 record when they play a game right after a Taylor Swift album release. I'm like, first of all, who does the research on that? Who's got time to do that? But so anyway, and from what I understood, that held up yesterday because I think Purdue got beat. But so I say that to lead into this. Did a little research. The average human being spends 7,000 hours of their lifetime waiting. Waiting in line, waiting in traffic. That's 292 days. It's almost a whole year. We spend our lives waiting. Now again, that's just one stuff. In general, it says here, some of that research I found, it says 6 months of that waiting is usually done at traffic lights. And it's probably, if it's the one there at Hamilton, where 243, 278, if it's that one, that figure would be a little bit higher, because that's the longest red light in the history of mankind. Y'all know which one I'm talking about, right? Yeah, right there by the courthouse. I always hit it. It always hits me when I'm in a hurry. You got to sit there for 3 minutes. But let's see what else here. Some others. The average, it says an average human from this study. I don't know how valid it was, but it's just for entertainment purposes. 4.3 years we spend in cars. My glasses just broke. Let's see, what are some other things here? In general, about 38 hours in traffic annually we spend. Anyway, we spend a lot of time waiting. And so it's kind of a natural thing there, but it kind of leads me into when I was thinking about this, and it kind of led me down a rabbit hole. Has anyone ever heard of called I guess it's Hofstadter's Law? Hofstadter. Hofstadter's Law. I agree with it totally. It says it's a planning fallacy that states that we tend to underestimate the time required to complete a task. We underestimate. So in other words, like for example, I was just, I think it was Thursday. No, it was Friday. Came home and I was going to quickly fix the lawnmower issue I got. And before you know it, it's about time for me to head back up to the school for the game. And I was like, this will take me about an hour and a half. And that was 3 days ago, and the lawnmower was still sitting on my carport. So it's definitely, the evidence supported that hypothesis. It says basically it's a fallacy that states that we tend to underestimate the time required to complete a task, even if the task is well managed. It's kind of a business thing from the business world. It's from a guy named Douglas Hofstadter or whatever, I can't pronounce his name, but it says, has optimism bias. It's a mistaken human tendency to believe that we are less likely to experience negative events and experience positive ones. Though reality suggests otherwise, we tend to underestimate the negative impacts and overestimate positive impacts, which I kind of depressing. I'm a positive guy, but anyway, it's just one of those where it's just, I guess for me, it's always this is if I wait the morning, if I'm going to wait till the morning of right before a period to run a test off, it never fails. Copper's going to be jammed. Copper's not working. It's just one of those things where I'm going to get behind the tractor or the school bus in the morning when I'm running late. Never fails. But anyway, so we're getting all this into this, and kind of as we get more and more away from that and kind of get into it. When we have to wait, like I said, my glasses broke, so I'm having a hard time reading my own writing here. When you have to wait for something and you don't know how long you're going to wait, doesn't it seem like it always takes longer? I always found it like this, especially like on a drive, like if you're going somewhere you've never been to before, it may seem like it takes forever there, but once you've been there and you come back, it seems like the drive's a lot shorter. You know what I'm talking about? So something like that. So again, as I said, my glasses are broke here. It says research has shown that that when we have what is called uncertain waiting, in other words, we don't know how long we're going to have to wait, etc., that it causes anxiety. Anxiety makes time feel longer. We have a lost control, and we have the tendency to go through what-if scenarios. Basically, we start surrounding our mind with negative thoughts. When you're having like if you're waiting around on something like for a job offer or something, it's like, oh, maybe I didn't get it. Maybe you're just sitting there and you're just going through, it's our mind to go wrong. So it's more stressful, more anxiety-inducing when the duration of the unknown compared to known. So when we know how long we got to wait, it's not quite near as stressful. Something called certain waiting. It's called the expectation, reduced anxiety, better managed perception. And this is actually, and it's fun when I did something, and again, I went down a rabbit hole last night on all this. But like airports are designed with this in mind. You ever notice, like I said, you think about it, when you get off your plane and you go through your gate, baggage claim is on the other end of the airport. It's right there. So why did they do that? Well, it says that airports want to increase the distance between the arrival gate and baggage claim because the extra walking time occupies the traveler's time. And usually it gives them time to have the baggage ready when they get there. And it says it reduces complaints to customer service. So they said it is build that into the planning of the airport, so when they get off the airplane, they got to walk, from their gate to. And it got me thinking about other things that possibly that could occur, that those type of designs occur. So we kind of get into this, and it's like waiting is hard, and uncertain waiting especially, as we said, it's tough on you mentally. And if you think about it, as we get in here into the last part of Daniel chapter 9, I think, perhaps maybe Daniel was going through this. Again, we've studied Daniel. We're not going to question his faithfulness. We're not, we're going to see right here how God viewed him as his faithful servant. But, perhaps, like I said, he may have been here spiritually and emotionally. He was praying, he was confessing, and he was asking God to restore his people. He didn't know when or how God was going to act. And we're going to see right here that that God's going to send the angel Gabriel to Daniel, and he's going to turn his waiting from uncertain to certain right here. So with God's timeline of redemption. So that's kind of what we're getting right here is, if we go back as we kind of get, if we look in Daniel chapter 9, our lesson today starts in verse 20, but if you go back to the last verse we looked at last week on verse 19, Daniel says, O Lord, hear, O Lord, forgive, O Lord, hearken, and do defer not for thy own sake. O my God, for thy city and thy people are called by thy name. So we see we see Daniel here is calling on, in verse 19, hey, please don't wait, and we're going to see kind of an incredible response right here. So if we'll go, let's look at verses 20 through, we're going to go 20 through 23 right here again today. Not a lot really to get into as far as the number of verses, but like I said, it gets into some pretty good stuff right here. So verses 20 through 23, somebody would please. Yes, ma'am.
At the beginning of that supplication, the commandment came forward, and I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the manner and consider the vision.
All right. So we see right here, Daniel's praying. He is, like I said, if we look at it, he's confessing. And again, verse 20 just shows the humility of Daniel, don't it? We've discussed it many times. Daniel's beloved. He was in good standing with God. And what does he say? I was praying and confessing. The first thing he says, confessing whose sin? His sin, right? So I was confessing my sin, then the sin of my people, Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God. Now I also realized I left my Sunday school book, what I had, probably the lesson I had the most reference to, had stuff marked to read, and I left it at home. So, but anyway, so if we look at that, I think that, I don't know, maybe an extra back there, but so what do we look at right here? Daniel he gets his answer while he's still praying. Thank you. And so we get that we see God's quick response right here as we look at from verse 19 to verse 20, and because as we said, as Daniel was still praying, confessing Israel's sin, petitioning God, the angel Gabriel appeared. We get a little bit of a different description here. It says, yea, while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly and touched about. So he describes Gabriel here as a man. And, of course, if we realize back in, there goes my glasses, chapter 8, so, everybody's having their mornings, but that's where we first see where Gabriel appears to Daniel. But now he's got him, it's almost more to an angelic figure. It's more like a man. Just he appears, and he's going to basically inform Daniel what lay ahead in not only the immediate but also distant future for his people. So we see in verse 21, during this time, it's during the time of the evening sacrifice, according to the Mosaic law. Now, even though, this was not, they weren't having these sacrifices, Daniel was probably using this time to pray. If you remember a few chapters ago when the king's people tried to frame Daniel, and, they got the king to say, hey, it's illegal to pray to anybody but to the king. And they knew Daniel prayed 3 times a day. It was said that this was probably one of those times where they knew Daniel was going to pray because it's supposed to be the time for them to do the evening sacrifice. So it comes to Daniel and lets him know what lay ahead. And, we see that Gabriel is a source of revelation, when he appears we see this a lot. What are some other times in the Bible where Gabriel appears to make revelations to some of God's people? Any guesses? Mary? Who else? What's that? Elizabeth? Others? Yeah. What's that?
John the Revelator.
Yeah, John the Revelator. So that was Zechariah, right? And so about the coming of John the Baptist, and that's like I said, just it seems like when Gabriel, when there's something, that's kind of one of his main roles. He's obviously high up in the realm there with the angels, and God has uses him throughout to reveal to his people, important things. So we see that here. God's instruction was to appear and basically to explain the future. And we see in verse 23 that he, at the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth. So basically Gabriel said, hey, when you started praying, the word, basically God's instruction, to appear was made. And there's one right here that says, I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. And what a great, that got me thinking, man, that's pretty awesome. If you're a servant, that's how God viewed Daniel. Think about that. You're greatly beloved. So that had to be comforting to Daniel, because he, he's being stressed and things of that nature. So we see here that we're going to get that Gabriel's going to come and reveal what holds. So got right there. What does Gabriel's swift arrival tell us how he views Daniel's prayer? What do we think about that? When Gabriel's swift arrival. So how did God view Daniel's prayer? Again, this is kind of open to some discussion. Like I said, he'd already said in verse 19, hey, hearken not, or do not hearken, or something like that. Basically, he was praying for a response, and right there, Daniel was still in the middle of his prayer when Gabriel appeared. So, how do you think, God views Daniel's prayer right there? How would you describe Daniel's prayer?
God was listening.
God is listening, yeah. But as far as Daniel, how did Daniel, it's just, hey, God, give me this, give me, Daniel showed humility every time, didn't he? Confessing my sin, confessing the sins of his people. So Daniel's heart of humility and confession moved God to respond. And I think that's kind of gives us an example there, when we to approach God, and be humble. So from now, that takes us now, we kind of get into, after that, we kind of get the stages set right here, and we're going to get into now the 70 weeks. And I know I learned something here because on this. So verse 24, somebody would please.
70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
All right, so 70 weeks. First thing we got to get out of the way. When I first read this, if I was thinking 70 weeks, I was thinking 70 weeks. That's not 70 weeks of 7 days. That's 70 weeks or 70 weeks is 70. Each week was 7 years. Does everybody understand that? So we're talking 70 times 7. So that's 490 years. You're looking at me like I'm.
I guess I'll learn something too.
Yeah. So, I was like, because you start thinking right there, that's in our terms, I would think, 52 weeks in a year, basically, roughly. So, doing some math. That's basically Actually, it's 490 years. And to me, we're going to get in here. There's, like I said, well, anyway, we'll get in there. But here's the deal. If we look right here in verse 24, we see, a list of things that's going to occur during that time. And the thing is, a lot of these have already occurred. Is that correct? So a lot of this prophecy has already been fulfilled, and we're kind of getting into it. And again, for me, I had to sit there and kind of do the math and stuff. So again, and this is straight from our book right here. It says, at the end of these 490 years, 6 things will occur. It says Israel's apostasy will end at the second coming of Jesus Christ, when she repents of her rejection of Jesus Christ as divine Messiah. Number 2, Israel's sin will be removed, now having trusted in Jesus Christ. 3, as Israel repents of her rejection of Jesus Christ at the second coming, the atonement he wrought at the cross will bring salvation to the Jews. 4, Christ will bring about perfect righteousness in his covenant people in the millennial kingdom. 5, all covenant promises to Israel in the Old Testament will be sealed. That is fully realized in the millennial kingdom. Basically, in our book says, and I didn't know this, but like unsealed prophecy is prophecy that's unfulfilled. So when it's sealed, that means it's been fulfilled. And the most holy place in the millennial kingdom will be consecrated. So those 6 things are what's going to happen. So if we get into, from there, we get in now to, let's go to verses 25 and 26. So that kind of gives a preview right there, and we get a little more detail here in verses 25 and 26. Somebody would.
Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined.
All right, so get a lot right there, don't we? First of all, I always have to sit there and remember how long is a score. I always have to go back to Gettysburg, because it's 407 years ago. I used to have a joke as a coach, 4 2 quarters ago, this game was tight. And, but yeah, a score's 20 years. And or 20 is 20, and I assume that's what we're talking about here. Well, not here, 20, but it's like, so I'm looking at it, if we go back to it, 62 weeks, so that would be what, 62 weeks plus 7 weeks, that's 69 weeks right there out of the 7. So that's significant right there. And now we're going to start tying in all the stuff from Revelation. I can remember now, like I said, study Daniel connects a lot of dots, man. I'm not scared of Revelation anymore. Revelation, I didn't understand it. And so it kind of made me, I guess I had uncertain waiting, I guess, for lack of a better term. So we got those. And then, so we got that, and it talks about after 62 weeks, so shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. So we're really going to get into some, like I said, as you get into the timing, and we start looking at it, there's really some cool stuff here. It's just amazing. So let's go with verse 25 right here. And it says, Gabriel provided some complex details about the immediate future and the distant end times. And basically the gist of what is important, and I'm reading straight from a book here, is the 70 weeks of years. And as we said, a week of years is 70 years, so 70 weeks times 70 weeks of years comes to 490 years. And we see 7 weeks of years followed by 62 weeks of years, so 7 weeks plus 62 weeks. If I don't have, I know I'm going fast, but that's 69 weeks. So basically, we're at 483. There's 483 years. Then we got another 7. Where do you think that last 7 is going to be? Yeah, tribulation. And so now that's the last 7 years. In other words, we got to 483. Where's the last 7 years going to come from?
The 483 plus, yeah, 483 plus the last 7.
Yeah,
Yeah, the last 7 is the true plan.
yeah, that's kind of, so and again, from what I understand, the 483 has already occurred. Is that correct? Am I right on that? So now that's where we're kind of getting. So I just want to make sure I was being correct here, because the last thing I want, I usually try to all my story. I try to cross reference this 2-3 times, and that makes me feel pretty good about it. So at the end of those, we got those 483 years. But here's the deal about this. And again, I'm having trouble reading because my notes are not very well written here. So it is said that basically from 483 years from the day of decree that Jerusalem was to be restored to that time. So here's the deal. As we get into it, from that time, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, because I thought I had it, but here it is. The day Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey to proclaim himself Israel's Messiah was 483 years to the day after the command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem had been given. According to the book.
Cyrus gave the command to Nehemiah.
Cyrus gave it to Nehemiah. Yes, sir.
There's 4 different time frames where a command was given to rebuild the temple, to send exiles, to beautify the temple, and then to restore Jerusalem. And restoring Jerusalem was the one Cyrus gave to Nehemiah in 444.
Yep, and that's what I have here. It's references Nehemiah 2, chapter 2, verses 1 through 8, and the time of that was March 5th, 444 BC. Now and as I did that, and I started doing the math right here, and again, you got to realize this is when Daniel's writing this, it's about 100 years before, and 538 BC, somewhere there. But AD 33, if you start doing the math right there between 444 and AD 33, that's only 400 and something, but 76 years in solar years, and that's. Here's what the research I found said. It said the Jewish calendar was based on the lunar year. Is that correct?
Every 30 days.
30 days. So 30 days. There was 30 days in a month, no matter.
That's what's referred to as the prophetic timeline. Is a 30-day month.
30-day month is prophetic timeline. So all that when they and the guy, the research I did on this, he got into and like I said, if you're not a math person, you would have been. But he got into hey, this many days, or this is equal to this many days, and then whatever, and it comes out exactly to the day. And like I said, for me, and I've talked about this before, and just anytime there's a reference to Palm Sunday and stuff, I always think about that. Like, I can almost, when I read the account of Palm Sunday, I can almost feel the energy in the city that day. It's just, Jesus was coming in triumphantly and stuff, and I use that to show you how people can change, but how quickly people's thoughts can change about you right there. He rode in, everybody cheered right there on that Sunday, and a week, 5 days later, they had him on the cross. So, but yeah, that sticks out to me because, like I said, the Palm Sunday has always been something that sticks out to me. But wow, to the day, man, is that not like solidified? I mean that. But getting into that kind of leads to the question, why is specific timing important for prophecy? I think that's why right there. I mean, that's, if you're, as you're growing with a relationship perhaps with someone you're witnessing to right there, and you can say, hey, you question the, if you're going to question the truth of the Bible right there, it's hard to dispute it. So, one of those things you can use, but and it says that some of the things as I researched this is the day he rides into Jerusalem. Why is it why is that the fulfillment and not the day he's born? Because that, again, that's the day that he publicly announced that he was the Messiah. So, and we get into verse 26 right there, and it says, after 62 weeks shall the Messiah be cut off. What's that referencing right there? That's what? That's the crucifixion. And again, let's read on right there. It says, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. So again, that, again, we see, that's a very subtle reference, though, that he died for us. It's just to be cut off, but not for himself. And the people, the prince that shall come, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war, desolation are determined. So, we see a few other things there that has occurred. The people of the prince, we know that later on in 70 AD, the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. And from there, the end of the war, desolations are determined. Basically what that, at that point, 483 years, and there's the gap until the tribulation occurs. And so we get to that, if you add, like I said, putting all that together, 483 years between the decree, the Jesus riding in, and then finally when the tribulation occurs, that gives us our 490 years. That's referenced right there to 70 weeks. So for me, as I've studied this, it's cleared a lot of things. It's cleared a lot of things up. I've studied this before, read it before. It's really what's helped me is studying Revelation, understanding Revelation now and this. Now that kind of is really connecting the dots of Revelation for me on everything right here. So finally in verse 27 right there, it says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So now, here we get to the final week of 7 years, which will begin for Israel in the end times, future, when the Antichrist confirms the covenant for 7 years. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, based on what I've read right here, there's going to be a peace treaty signed with the Antichrist and Israel going to sign a peace treaty. Everything's going to be all right there, we think, for the first half of it, correct? I'm on the right track, right?
First 3.5 years of the peace.
So, and it says the Jewish sacrificial system is going to be reinstated. But in the middle of the tribulation period, the Antichrist is going to put a stop to the sacrifices, and then no one on earth will be permitted to worship anyone but the Antichrist. He's going to set himself up as the deity. So that's kind of as a deity. I shouldn't say the deity. So from there, it says that basically, at that time, if you remember, we talked, let's see, who was it? I can't remember, but crazy guy that desecrated the temple earlier, and he sacrificed a pig in it, poured the...
Antiochus.
Yeah, it's Antiochus. Yeah, I didn't have his name down. We thought that was, thought that was the abomination. We're going to see the Antichrist is going to set up an image of himself inside the Jewish temple. This amounts to the Antichrist enthroning himself in the place of deity, displaying himself as God, and this blasphemous act will utterly desecrate the temple, making it abominable and therefore desolate. The Antichrist will then demand that the world worship and pay idolatrous homage to him, and those who refuse will be persecuted, and many will be martyred. So we kind of get, again, Daniel referencing 7 years, the final 7 years there of what's going to happen. That we see also, you know, referenced in Revelation. So yeah, even though that's 1, 2, 3, that's 4 verses right there. That's pretty heavy right there, isn't it? That's pretty heavy, 4 verses. You know, for as far as Daniel, you know, kind of revealing right there. Again, I see why now. I remember, what was it said? This is the Old Testament revelation. Is that basically? So I can see why. I definitely am getting that picture now. So yeah. So it gets all this, and I kind of, you know, as I wrote it down right here, just tying it back into my introduction there about the anxiety of waiting, you know, uncertain waiting. As Christians, we should have certain waiting because we know the timeline. We don't know exactly when, but we understand what's going to, that even though we may not know exactly when it's going to occur, what should we take comfort in? That this is not just something that's happened this is not happenstance of what's going on in the world. It's all controlled by God. And He, you know, that should give us a comfort there that, you know, no matter we look at the world, how bad or whatever, you know, at the end, God's got this, and you know, we just need to go and each day try to live our lives to, you know, to be a witness for Him and try to give, you know, present the gospel to as many unsaved people as we can between now and whenever that time comes, and the rest of it takes care of itself right there. My dad used to tell me all the time, don't worry about things you can't control. And that's why I joke with kids all the time. I said, we had Google when I was a kid. It's called the Encyclopedia World Book. And my aunt had a world book that I love to read. And I remember one time I came across something called Civil Defense. And this is in late 70s during the Cold War. And it's talking about nuclear attack. It got me. I was 7, 8 years old. I was scared to death of the nuclear war. You know, maybe that's why I am like I am today. But I said, Dad, I'm scared. You know, he goes, you can't worry about things you can't control. And after that, I kind of quit worrying. And it's always, you know, that's things as well. And we're bad at it. So even today at 55, 48 years after that, sometimes I have to remind myself I can't worry about things I can't control. And it's helped me a lot. I try to tell kids that, especially, you know, the thing I figured out, and I enjoyed, like I said, don't get me wrong, the 6 years I spent at the collegiate level, it did reveal something to me. It's like I think really God put me on this earth to deal with adolescents. I really believe that. You know, and that's why I've had, you know, a remarkable career, and you know, and I've never really felt like I've hardly worked a day in my life. You know, there's some days I have, depends on which class, what period class sometimes. But anyway, but yeah. So I try to give that to kids. You can't, you know, we try to worry about things that are out of our control. And as humans, and I saw there's something else like the brain, our brains are hardwired to be in control. And when we can't be controlled, that's where we get frustrated. And I think that's where we see causes of outbreaks and things by people breaking against, because it's not being able to have that control or whatever. I don't know. But so just some things here to remember. You know, God's plans are exact and certain. They're not random or delayed. You know, Christ is the center of God's redemptive timeline, and judgment and restoration both serve God's righteous purposes. Remember, we kind of hit on that too, that, you know, we think of God's righteousness is, we like to think about that good. Hey, He's promised, you know, if we repent, we're forgiven. But also we've got to understand that God's promise of judgment also is just a big part of His righteousness as well. Because He says, you know, when He says He's going to do something, He's going to do it. He's going to keep His promises. And so that goes both ways. But anyway, so that concludes chapter 9 right there. Just a few other things here, just that kind of gets into that. So we got to remember, you know, that God's plan, like I said, it's not random and delayed, and it wouldn't, you know, this is not like me trying to plan a party on the fly or anything. This thing's planned out. And again,
why should we point that out again? It's to give us comfort. It's planned out. This is the most, meticulous thing it's written in eternity, and it's fulfilled through Christ. So we should find our comfort there. And even though we don't see the end of the situation or a situation, God has the timeline written. And that's, again, we got to have comfort in that. And it's tough because, again, as humans, what do we want to be? We want to be in control. But and just as Daniel looks forward to the coming Messiah, we need to look forward to his return. So all in all, right there, when it's all said and done, we may not know, and it's almost paradoxical, but we may not know what tomorrow holds, but we should have comfort in that because we know that God is in control of it. God has planned it out. So.
What were the answers to the questions?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
I only got further.
Yeah, like I said, I got some of those. Which one are you referring to, T?
The key themes.
Oh, on the as far as the key themes, yeah, God's and again, I don't have the exact copy you have, but God's plans are exact and certain. Yeah, they're not random and delayed. Christ is the center of God's redemptive timeline, and judgment and restoration both serve God's righteous purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So, but yeah, like I said, we just take comfort, and again, it's tough for us, and especially for me, because all I know is what's going to happen. But when it's going to happen, like I said, I always have to pray for patience, and I pray for it to get it now. So, but on a serious note, like I said, we just got to trust God. He's got it planned out, and I think that's one thing that we can get from Daniel. So, all right, chapter 10 starts next week. So, just 3 weeks on chapter 9. But I felt like it deserved. I didn't want to rush through that. Anybody else? Like I said, hope I didn't jumble that too bad. It's like I couldn't read my notes there. You ever did that? You ever up there? You can't read your notes. The eyes, my eyes are so bad. I started to realize I got to write everything 14 on it. All right, we'll close with a word of prayer. Lord, again, we're thankful for this day. Thanks for this time together, Lord. Lord, just thank you so much for your love and caring. And Lord, again, just keep reminding us, Lord, that you have this plan, Lord, that even though sometimes when we wait, it's tough on us, just give us that comfort knowing that you're in control. Lord, as we go through our worship service, be with Brother Nate Springs of Memphis, be with each and every family here, Lord. Be with those who may not be able to be here for whatever reason. Let them feel that comfort of your sovereignty, Lord, that you're in control. And Lord, again, as we go out in the world, Lord, just let us be a light for you, Lord, that people will see you in us and in our lives, Lord. Forgive us where we failed you. In Christ's name we pray.